So hello and welcome back to another Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Pascal Steve, and on the other end, it is Steve Hall. This time, he is fresh again, ready for the Deload.
Pretty much, yeah. I actually, reflecting back, hindsight's 2020, isn't it? So last week, I know on the Monday, I had my belt squat RDL, and that session destroyed me. And I was just like, man, these movements are just clearly systemically so taxing for me. I got home and I remember just like crashing on the sofa for 30 minutes because I was like, I'm fatigued. I need to just take a bit of a rest/nap. And then that evening I got sick.
Oh, yeah.
And then I came in this Monday and I had that same session. Or no, was it Monday? I moved things around because I had to take an extra rest day because of the sickness. But anyway, I ended up doing that session and I was like, this feels way easier than last week. Oh, that's why, because here I'm like, I was getting into a sickness, whereas here I'm coming out of a sickness, even though arguably you'd say like in terms of accumulation of fatigue through like a training mesocycle, I'd had more of it. It felt kind of easier and I didn't feel like I needed a nap. So yeah, I'm kind of on like just over a week kind of out of that sickness now. Oh no, wait, a week after having been sick, just over a week. So I'm kind of on the recovery end of it now. So
are you considering extending then the mesocycle, or is it quite clear to you that you're actually going to the deload?
So I have two options. I'd be interested in what you would take. So today would be my final kind of, it'll be 5 weeks worth of training that I'll have done, which is normally my 5-to-1 accumulation to deload. And I can either push it up until can train Saturday, and then I leave Saturday for Birmingham to go to the WNBF where I'm going to be judging. And then the next week could be a deload, and part of me is tempted to just do this one, is deload from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then come in fresh Monday to kind of get into things. Like one way I just basically get to avoid deloading for as long. Not that I have to necessarily deload a whole week anyway, but it just suits my Monday starting.
Knowing you and how you respond to traveling and social interaction, I know that the latter one would probably not be as beneficial as the first one. So i.e. traveling, judging over the weekend, coming back, as you quoted, fresh, starting on Monday. I honestly I can't see it for you in particular that you're coming back fresh, to be honest.
That also was part of my worry, but I'm like, part of me is tempted because I would feel a little bit better on the judging day if I haven't continued to trash myself with training. And then on the Monday, I'm hoping that I'll be less stressed. Well, basically, it's starting a new meso, so it's not the hardest. It's like the easiest hard training you're going to do is that first week. So I'm like, maybe I'll be able to kind of do it. And part of me was also considering, hey, just take that Monday off as well and then start Tuesday. Maybe
that would have been my suggestion. Just another rest day to actually then get over the weekend or the weekend fatigue. I think a day from something like this is probably more than enough because it's not like an entire weekend full of stress. It's just like traveling on one day, judging for the entire day, traveling back home again. And I think that taking the time on Monday for yourself, really recovering so that you really, truly are fresh then to start the new mesocycle on Tuesday. And what's the day of a rush, right? It doesn't really make any kind of difference after all. Probably even a positive difference.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what made me take the rest day, the extra rest day when I was sick, where I was just like, what am I going to get from going in and trying to train legs today? At best, I'm going to be able to like get an okay session and it's going to destroy me and set me backwards and make me more ill, I would think. Or I can rest another day and possibly get it in the next day, have a better quality session that's not going to set me back and go through things. But I don't know about you, Pascal. I think you're better at this than me. But I have this consistent thing. It happened to me last time I got sick, where I get a little bit sick and I'm like, I'm not that sick, and I'll continue to train. And then the next day, I'm really quite sick. Yeah. I'm like, I have to take a rest day. Yeah. And then I have to like reconcile what I'm going to do from there. Sometimes it lands at a point where I'm just like, fuck it, I'm just going to deload anyway. Or it comes when I'm like, hey, I can now get back into things. So yeah, but I also don't know if it's like, if I did rest that day where I decided, hey, I'm not that sick, I can continue to train, would it have just ended up I'd feel bad the next day anyway? I'm like,
yes. Funny enough, these are the thoughts that go through my mind as well, especially because the last couple of days, the other guys were sick again. And I then try my very best to avoid it. And I was thinking like, okay, shouldn't I just wait with the deload up until the point where I may catch the cold as well? Because if I now take a rest day and a deload, and I then catch it at the tail end of the deload, then I possibly need to extend the deload. But if I don't take it now, maybe I'm running myself so much into the ground that the immune system is suppressed, then I'm getting sick, etc., etc. And also, at the same time, I have the same thing when it comes to rest days even, where I'm thinking like, all right, the other guys are sick now. If I take a rest day now today, and I start to get sick then the day after, was it kind of a rest day in vain? And for basically for nothing? I should have then taken it when I feel actually more sick. And also the same goes then for the kind of pushing it hard. You said it yourself, kind of hindsight is 20/20, but sometimes I go into the gym, I may not feel as ready, and then I'm getting injured or so. Or I actually then have the sickness breaking out the next day. And then I'm thinking like, was the training the sole reason for why I was getting sick or injured? Or did I just, I don't know, it was just an unfortunate timing? Because if you're going to the gym and you're not getting injured or the sickness is breaking out, you're not thinking like, oh, right, this time I didn't get injured. Right? You only see the negative effects. It's kind of like observational bias.
Yeah, and so where my head always goes is, if I can train, I fucking train. If it's only if I know I can't have good training. Like if I can push through a session and it can be good despite really tough, I just end up pushing myself to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to convince myself that this is like some hardness that this puts in me so that when I come prepping, it feels easier or something. I don't know. I'm going to convince myself that this is the way to go. But it's like you said, you can never know what the right choice is.
Yeah. Up until the point when something hits the fan. And then you think like, I should have known better. You know, what is that called again? That is kind of hindsight bias.
Hindsight bias.
Yeah, exactly.
I told you so.
Exactly. I knew this is going to happen, right? I should have listened to my body. But then you forget about the times when you did decide to go to the gym and nothing really happened, even though that you felt bad or worse or something like this. And funny enough, for me personally, Steve, and I don't know how it is with you, but because I'm working from at home and because I have my typical routine of needing and forcing myself to go out on walks, because otherwise I would be quite inactive otherwise, you know. For me personally, this training session is another reason for me to be active. And I like to be active. I want to be active throughout the day. And this gives me always a possibility to then get the day going, have a little bit more activity throughout the day, but also in the morning time as well, where it's not just like I need to get in another 1 or 2 walks throughout the day. And I like this. I like to just train.
Yeah, I said this to you when I'm like Monday through Friday, I like to train every day because it's like part of the routine. And if I don't have that, I'm like, can I drag Ada out for another walk? And I'm like, I don't really enjoy walking you like I do going to the gym. It's not the
Steve,
same.
It's getting cold now in Europe.
Oh yeah, it's getting cold. I'm
not looking forward to that now, especially with the dog. Oh, I loved it. So as you may remember, we got cardio back in January, right? And the weather was absolute trash and awful, right? And I hated that time. And then the weather in April or May, it got much, much better. You could just like put on the shoes, go out on a quick walk, and that was it. And now slowly it's starting to get very cold and rainy again. And you have to just prepare yourself. And that time takes like 5-10 minutes only to get dressed to then go out on a walk.
How is he in the rain? Is he okay for it? Or the cold? Like he did cold. I mean, they don't care about the cold, do they?
Yeah. I mean, at this point now, it's totally all right. But back then he was, of course, not that well behaved, and we needed to teach him first. And he was just like, just jumping through all of the mud and all the kind of stuff, and was dragging it into the apartment as well, which is something that is, of course, at least where we live, And probably also as well as you, Steve, not the most pleasant thing. I think that if you're living on a farm, for example, so be it, right? But I like my place clean.
Yeah.
So funny enough, I just recently made a post about kind of grilled chicken breasts in an oven. And someone, when he saw my post or the story post, said like, this is probably the cleanest oven that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yours is brand new too, though, right?
It is brand new, though. But I like it when things are clean.
Do you clean your oven then regularly?
Yeah, it has. Funny enough, it has a function that is called pyrolysis or so, which is a self-cleaning function. And I regularly do it because I don't really want to have any kind of garbage lying around in my oven.
I don't know how often I use my oven. I don't use the oven. I use the air fryer now and then because I've got an air fryer, which I also really regularly clean. I don't regularly clean. I'm not like the messiest person, but I'm not as probably clean as what you are.
Funny thing is, so many people have it in their head that the woman in the household is always the cleanest person. But in our household, it's actually the other way around. So Katie is not a dirty person in that, in quotation marks. She of course keeps things clean as well, but I'm even just a layer on top of her, where I kind of make fun. I kind of give her shit for it, but sometimes also make fun of it. So I give her shit for it when I'm in a less funny mood. When I'm in a more funny mood, I'm kind of teasing her with it, you know. But there's just a couple of things, for example, in the kitchen where I just like, I want to have it freaking clean.
Yeah, I think me and Charlotte both aren't the cleanest, so it ends up with our house being a bit like I would say she's messy, whereas I'm not. Well, it depends where I'm at. I'm not as messy as her with stuff. But I'm not as good about being clean, if that makes sense. I don't know if that even makes sense. I'm good. I like keeping my office tidy. She always says this. She's like, you keep your office tidy, but the rest of the house you don't give a shit about. I'm just like, well, the workplace has got to be tidy.
How did we get to that?
I don't know where we're going with that. No, I don't know. So I am. So you're deloading now. So what happened?
Yeah. So funny enough, our deloads co-align once again. Right, automatically. We didn't really actually talk about it, but here we are spontaneously deciding to actually then take the deload, maybe in the same fashion such as yourself, Steve, because my original plan was to take a deload at the end of October, because this is where then Katie and the kids are actually having a short-term holiday going up to the Baltic Sea. I can't go there because it's holiday once again from the school. Right, and that's why Katie has also off work, and I can't just take regularly time off of work. That I think it's not fair to the vast majority of my clients as well to take too many holidays. And that's why I decided to actually then stay at home. They will spend kind of 4 days up at the Baltic Sea. But then during that time, at first, I thought that I'm then without a car, which is not that big of a deal. I could easily get to the gym as well, but walking just takes a little bit longer, or by bicycling or taking the bike. But especially now that it's actually getting colder outside, I was just like thinking, okay, let me just co-align that with the time when they are away. So that was the original plan. And then it turned out that they are now, she takes her brother and his daughter with them. So they are spending a little bit of time there together. And because of that, they asked then my father-in-law, because he has like a small family van or bus, if they can actually borrow that one. So they are actually taking that car then with them. I'm then still mobile. And I'm just tired. I'm just tired in general. The sessions don't really feel productive anymore. Everything feels just heavy. Have a harder time getting the pump. This has probably also contributed to me in the last deload still needing the antibiotics, still recovering from the skin infection, which took 3 weeks to get rid of. And it was just probably still lingering inside of me. And now it catches kind of up with me. And I then said, because of the circumstances, because of the mobility thing now being cleared, let's take the deload now. From today up until then Sunday, and then hitting the gym again on Sunday, where then it's kind of the same as you, where it's kind of like taking complete time away from the gym during that time frame, and really resting up, healing up, recovering, and focusing on other things during that time. And funny enough, it's kind of the same as yours.
How do you know how long ago how many weeks into a meso are you now?
It's actually already 5 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's funny because it didn't really feel that long. It did feel like I was just coming off the antibiotics 2 weeks ago, but apparently it's already kind of 4 weeks ago, because I knew that I still remember that the first week I took the antibiotics and I already went to the gym. So.
How is what's your weight up from the mini cut now?
It is at 80. Unfortunately, it hasn't really come down. I mean, so just to give a little bit of reference, in the beginning of August, 1 week prior to our wedding celebration, I actually stopped the mini cut. I stopped it or ended it at around 75.8, which is, when it comes to a mini cut, depending on the aggressiveness of the mini cut, is never really the weight that you're expecting to maintain. You then always expect the weight that you are kind of about to lose in the first week of a mini cut to regain. And this is why I was expecting my weight to regain all the way up to 77 kilograms, somewhere around there. And then ever since then, this is the beginning of August. Now we are at the midst of October. I'm now at around 80 kilograms, which was a little bit too fast for my taste. But there were also so many things happening during that time frame of like wedding celebration, then the holiday on Mallorca, which I said already kind of pretty fatty meals, even though that I try to stay as controlled in an environment as possible. Then the traveling due to then tattoo appointments at the end of August, the celebration of Hugo going now to school, then early September within the tattoo appointment in Berlin, and then the infection. And I really have the feeling, and I don't know how much there is to it, Steve. I don't know if you've ever heard something about this. This is me being absolutely clueless, to be honest, when it comes to the interaction with certain medication. We know that certain medication can lead to water gain or water kind of accumulation in the system. And I'm responding quite severely to something like NSAIDs and also antibiotics when it comes to water retention. And this happened already a couple of times in the past, over the past years. Whenever I'm then taking medication like this, I never really seem to get it off then afterwards. Even though, and this is the weird part about it, I am someone who is very much a robot, independent of whether I'm sick or not. And especially with antibiotics, it wasn't that I was feeling bad. I could still go on with my day, with my daily routine. Nothing changed in terms of my nutrition. And yet I had the feeling that my weight spiked up and never really came back down. And I don't know if you ever heard something about kind of that it impacts your metabolism. I mean, with antibiotics, it could make sense because it, of course, impacts directly your gut bacteria and the intestinal bacteria kind of environment. So maybe there's something to it that then mineral uptake, mineral, vitamin, and caloric uptake is maybe, I don't know, a little bit different or so. I don't know. This is just like me having no clue why that always happens whenever I'm taking stronger medication, such as this, that my weight spikes and never really comes back down, because I can say with 100% certainty, and this is me being absolutely certain, that nothing with my routine changes, nothing in my nutritional endeavors change, etc., etc. And that is leaving me always kind of left with it being a mystery to me.
Yeah, I can't say I've noticed those things with myself, but I also don't tend to get like these water increases from those sort of medications and things. So I imagine it's very individual. Like when I'm trying to be as rational about it as possible, when I think about it, I'm skeptical that it's changing things to an extent where you're really gaining considerable amount of weight or fat there. But like, obviously you've got these correlations with you having done it. And it's like, it's hard to say against that. Do you notice anything visually? Do you still look like as if you would expect to be holding on to water at this point?
Yeah, so much more squishy and much more kind of softer. And that
Yeah.
this is the weird thing where whenever I go on medication like this, like after 1 to 2 days, it accumulates and I look much softer. And then you're expecting that it will come off like several days after then the medication stops, but it never does, right? And that's the weird part about it. And once again, I'm same as you. I am skeptical that medication has such a deleterious effect on your metabolism, maybe, because I have no idea about this. And it just makes me skeptical that just this fact alone causes you now to change everything physiologically, that you're now all of a sudden storing just so much more fat. I don't know, but the thing is that this didn't happen the first time. And once again, my day-to-day business doesn't change at all. And also, nutritionally speaking, nothing changes. So that is why it leaves me so clueless and also confused at times.
I wonder if you'll see like this drop off in body weight over these next days where you really let stress drop off. I wonder if because you weren't, like you're always holding on to some element of stress during the time you were taking the antibiotics, and then you kind of recovered from it, but then you were training hard. So maybe that kind of left that stress hanging around. Because sometimes I see this at least fairly consistently with myself and clients, just like these like, okay, weight will maybe spike up a bit in the week before a deload, and then it will kind of drop off in the deload week. It doesn't always happen, but I can sometimes see it happening, and it's like, oh, that makes sense, stress. So maybe you'll see that where it's like, hey, the stress just hasn't dropped off from it, and maybe during this deload, this like 4 days that you've got chilling, it will start to just drop.
Could be, but at the same time, I don't know. I would also expect it to then have come down because I'm not someone who's responding so much to stress in terms of water accumulation, such as other people maybe. It's just so weird because I have the data as well on my spreadsheet where it's like, all right, antibiotics noted down, time span of like 1 to 2 days, 1 kilogram up, 2 kilograms up, and it never really comes down back down again. And of course, it gets to you, right? It plays then tricks on your mind where it's like, shit, I did just a mini cut. Now I was, of course, taking the medication and all that kind of shit. And now I'm in a state where I don't really want to be. It wasn't really the most productive time getting here to that body weight. And I don't want to look like this, right? This was not my intention. You want the weight gain to be productive. And also not all of a sudden, because then you notice the visual differences so much more. And then it gets to you even more so.
Yeah, I guess it's in this situation, all you can do is be like, hey, I did my job. I did everything I could have done to have set things up as productively as possible. This came left field, and it is kind of what it is. And there's no point stressing too much extra about it, unfortunately. Hopefully it levels out over the next weeks, but it sounds like it might not. It might be like a bit of like a body weight gain that's down to this medication, weirdly enough.
And if anyone, right, because this is something that I very much benefit of when people are having a very constructive interaction here in our comment section. Also, when it comes to the warm-up stuff here last week, I've seen some very, very good takes on it as well. And funny enough, I had this week another kind of experience with that myself, where I was going into the gym very cold.
Oh yeah.
And my performance was actually not great. And this reminded me about kind of, it is mostly about, for me personally, just getting the body temperature up. When it's up at a certain level, I don't really need any kind of significant warm up, but it's mostly just to get my body warmed up, right? And in the summertime, I'm just going into the gym already sweating. But something like this is very much appreciated, that people share their take on it, share their perspective on it. And sometimes there are people much more knowledgeable commenting on a specific topic, and maybe someone in the medical field or pharmacy field has some insight around this as well, because I'm just curious and clueless at the same time. I'm skeptical, very much skeptical, because I'm someone who doesn't really believe, not believe, because that would that would imply that I'm more so just going off by ideology or anything alike. But it's more like I have a hard time believing when someone is saying like, "Oh, I'm taking that medication and my metabolism is completely screwed." right? I'm only
research.
eating, I'm only eating 1,000 calories, and it's the medication, right? I don't know. I'm skeptical.
It's that ice cream you're taking in to soothe yourself. But yeah, the warm up, I agree. I think there is actually literature pointing to you want to be a certain temperature to be able to perform well. So just because I'm pretty sure it's kind of, I don't know what the temperature is off the top of my head, but when you're warming up, getting to that point where you're like almost a light sweat is a good position to be in to be able to perform well, I believe. But again, don't quote me on that. That's just something that's come to mind as I'm thinking about the warm up. But yeah, it's like you said, we have very intelligent listeners that can give us some useful insights, even if it's just anecdotal, like they've experienced the same as what you have. That'd be interesting to know about. But in terms of your rate of gain, it's if you say 3 kilos gained from the mini cut, that's not terrible over like, what's it been now? Almost 12 weeks or something?
Yeah, no. What is it then?
3 months?
9 weeks, something like this.
Okay.
Which is kind of more the thing, where it's like, I didn't really want to regain at that velocity.
Yeah, it's a bit fast.
Rate. Yeah. And that just, I don't know. I at least have the feeling that I'm looking worse now at the 80 kilograms than I was the last time I was at 80 kilograms. It could be due to several reasons. It could also be, once again, also just like in my own head. I also have the feeling that in the summertime, I always look better than when it's colder. I don't know whether it has something then also to do with the skin, how it behaves. I just know also that in the summertime, I'm always walking around quite vascular just because of the temperature, which of course doesn't or is not the case right now, which may then play a role in the way that you perceive yourself as well. All those kind of things. It kind of, I'm getting older and older. I'm giving less shits about it, much less shits about the way that I look than I was in the past. But at the same time, we are doing this in order to look better and to improve, whether it is really to look better on stage or just for yourself. And this is me as well. And if you then have the perception that you are actually making a regression or regress, which is something that I very much doubt, because if you do things correctly, there's no chance that you actually look worse. There isn't.
Yeah, I could only imagine it's water retention that's doing that then.
Exactly.
It's got to be. Because I'm imagining your performance is maybe marginally better now than last time, like you're at 80 kilos. So
yeah, it is.
That's good.
Yeah, but that's the situation. The good thing is, though, that with this spontaneous deload as well, or kind of a little bit of a earlier deload this time, it aligns better with my schedule moving all the way into next year, because there are a couple of things that are going to happen at the beginning of the year, such as going once again on our snowboarding holiday at the beginning of February, and then also Katie and I, we want to go another time to Mallorca for a hiking trip just for 4 days. This is at the end of March, for example, and this way I can already kind of pre-plan things so that I should be able to take a deload during those times.
Yeah, I always like to map these things out, and then sometimes I'm like, man, I map all these things out, but then life happens and you're like, fuck, I just have to work around this.
I know. And then sometimes you just have to push for a little longer, or you have to cut it shorter and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Because what have I got coming up? So I think in 3 weeks after this weekend, I've got a tattoo booked in, which probably, I've got it on the Saturday, so probably means I won't really be able to get into hard training again actually, you'll know better than me, on the calf. I don't know how, I've heard the recovery on that is not the nicest.
No.
So I don't know how many days I'll need before I can get into hard training again. But maybe like that'll be I'll have 3 weeks of hard training, then maybe like half week deload, and then get back into things for like another 3 weeks or something, hopefully from there.
The problem is with the deep knee flexion stuff.
Yes, it's stretching, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I need for the quads. So we just have to see how that goes. It's annoying because I tried to line things up for that to line up with the deload, and I was just like, it's not making sense. Yeah. So anyway, I'm kind of taking half a week of a deload here, knowing that I've got that coming up, and so 3 weeks of really hard training into that, and then maybe needing again close to a full week off to recover from that. And then I don't really have anything that I know of apart from like Christmas and everything like that, which will start kicking in. But I do also have a holiday, which I haven't really wrapped my head around yet, because you'll probably know what this is like. But I told you about it. My family are going on like this big cruise in February, which is 2 weeks. And I've not taken 2 weeks off work for like the whole time I've been self-employed. And I don't know how I'm going to manage it. I think I said to you, I'm going to try and have like half check-ins 1 week, half check-ins the other week, and just do voice note check-ins with clients. I know they'll understand. Some of my newer ones might not so much, but if I was to look at the holiday I've taken this year and to the holiday we're meant to give ourselves, man, I've taken like, I don't know, I haven't even taken like a week off. I don't even think maybe a week, maybe something close to that. So I just never, it's tough. It's like you said, you don't want to go on this trip with like Katie and your family and stuff, because you're like, I don't feel like I'm able to take that time away. And yeah, it's just it's one of the small problems with being self-employed and doing the job that we do, but it's one of those things. So, but on that trip, I will be able to train, because on the cruise ships, they're freaking huge, and it's going to have this like gym in the fucking ship. And
as long as it's not just like a typical hotel gym environment where it's like dumbbells up to 20 kilograms.
Yeah. It will be like metabolite like just high rep work otherwise. But from memory, it's not going to have like, I doubt it's going to have like a proper hack. I need to check. I can probably check the ship and what it actually has. But it probably has like some right stuff.
The captain lifts, you know.
They have like PTs and everything on these freaking ships. It's crazy.
Man, that doesn't mean a lot, as we know.
No. So, but I imagine I'll want to do something. It's 2 weeks. I'm definitely going to be training. I still can't get my head around it. Part of me is still uncomfortable with the idea of being away for 2 weeks. I think Charlotte's the same as well. I don't think she's really wrapped her head around taking 2 weeks off work, because her work is like full on as well. So we haven't even got a carer for Ada. I'm still in like, what's it called? Just like, you know, when you're just ignoring something because you're like, I don't want to believe it's real.
Yeah. It's kind of a form of procrastination.
Yeah, I'm procrastinating. I'm like, something will happen so that it doesn't become a problem.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, also when it then comes to Christmas, wait a second. We'll take a short break and then we will be back with this one.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
So in regards then to also the Christmas time for you, Steve, I know that every single time that you're then going to Bude, for example, there is 3 days where the gyms aren't open, I think, right?
The cool thing with going to Bude, and why a big reason I'm like, yeah, let's go, it's because the gym is open Christmas Day. Like I can train, I've trained Christmas Day there.
Perfect, yeah.
Which is really cool.
That's the thing. I mean, when people... At least that's the case for me. For example, Christmas period doesn't really interfere with my training sessions at all.
Your gym's open.
My gym is open, yeah. The opening hours are the ones like they are on a weekend though. So sure. They are first opening up at 9, but that's totally all right? Yeah. Because why not? I mean, I can still get my training sessions in. I'm not spending the entire day in the kitchen, for example. And I don't have to spend the entire day just at home. And maybe it's a cultural thing, but at least for me personally here in Germany, it's not that you're just spending the entire day with the family.
Yeah, I think everyone has their own little things with Christmas and how that runs. Yeah. But like it's similar to like if I'm on holiday and it's very convenient for me to get, like there's a gym on the resort I'm staying at and I can go there while Charlotte's getting ready or asleep. Like I'm going in training because I freaking love training, unless I've planned it to be a deload, and then I'm like, oh, this is annoying. There's an amazing gym, but I'm deloading, so I need to recover.
Not only that, Steve, and I know that you're the same. Like, for example, I can only speak for myself when it comes to Mallorca. That one single gym, that was, what was it, 25 minutes away by car, and I still got there. I was still going. I checked out the time. I was looking for a place that opens as early as possible. It was opening at 6 a.m. in the morning. This was the time while my family was still asleep, and I was able to get a training session in, was there for 2 days. Perfect, you know? And I still managed it. Did I really have to go to the gym? No, no one's forcing me to. I could have easily just said like, no, I'm staying at home as well, but I wanted to because it gets me going for the day. It makes me feel good, and yeah, I just like it.
Yeah, I think it's key. It's kind of similar to like people macro tracking and doing that like consistently year round. I really look at these things as, where's it coming from? Is it coming from a place of like exercise or food controls you and you feel like, hey, you can't be low stress and enjoy your day unless you go train or exercise and track your food? Or is it a case of like, hey, I've got these goals. I know that doing these things is going to be productive towards those, and it's stress relieving almost to go do this thing from a like healthy stress relief place, not like I must do this sort of thing. If it's from that, like that's the key thing, the context. It's not like black and white. This is definitely unhealthy and obsessive. This is like a healthy mindset, just switching off. It's like, actually, what's the person thinking in their head when they're going through those things? And I've definitely been on the unhealthy side, but now I'm back where I'm like, hey, I can pick and choose like what allows me to get the most out of this.
Yeah, and I think that this is also a thing of time, that the longer you've been doing this for, the more you're proving to yourself and also your environment that you're doing it for basically just yourself, other than, I don't even know, status. Is that even something that why people are doing bodybuilding? I don't know. The thing is, though, what I want to add to that as well is, and each and every single season I'm reminded about it, that so many people, they think they want to step on the bodybuilding stage, but in reality, they don't. I don't know what it is. I'm always wrapping my head around this as to why people think that they want to step on the bodybuilding stage, but they didn't really do their due diligence of researching of what it implies, what that actually means to themselves, like physiologically, psychologically speaking, what it means to their environment, what it actually then takes in getting there. And I've said it a couple of times already on this podcast over the past couple of years, that you see there are so many people who start a contest prep but never really make it to stage. Never really make it to stage. And there are a lot of people. You simply don't hear from them because they don't have the following, and also maybe because they are not kind of shouting it out into the world. But there are a lot of people. I promise the listeners that there are a lot of people who are saying, all right, let's do a contest prep, and then a couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months in, they are then stopping, because when it starts to get hard, or when it starts to then impact maybe even their environment or their lives, they are then realizing, oh shit, this is actually what I have to do? Sorry, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts would be, they see a highlight reel on social media of people stepping on stage, having these crazy transformations, but they don't see they see the tip of the iceberg, and they don't see everything underneath of what went into that, what the struggles of that individual was, and how much time and effort they put into that process. Because there's a lot that goes into competing, like, just like you said, like the social relationships, even your work, the amount of time it takes from you, from cardio, steps, training, and posing as well. Like, there's so many elements to it. And then the travel, the staying over at location, the tan, like the exhaustion of the day, like let alone getting to that point. Competing takes a lot from an individual, which is why people talk about it being a really selfish sport, because ultimately it is. If you've got for you, like with your family, like, if you go compete, it's not something that's like productive towards your family life. It's for you as a person, and they can obviously support you in that. And part of them will enjoy, imagine having your kids watching you on stage. They'll be like shouting, "Come on, dad," or "Come on, papa." So that would be pretty sweet. But yeah, people underestimate it. Just as a complete tangent, I think that is the case for anabolic steroids a lot of the time. Because I've even been there when I've seen guys who are on gear and I'm just like, man, they look amazing. They're huge. Like, look at how they're filling out clothes. They can like lift so much weight. Imagine being like that. It'll be so much fun. And you just don't see all the dark side behind it in terms of all the negatives that come with it. And I think whilst in bodybuilding, we try and highlight the struggles and the pains, I think it's actually easy to gloss over those and just focus on the good. And I think people do that with contest prep. It's almost become like you see influencers competing. Like that recently happened. Like there's been some big name influencers that have competed. It's like, I don't know, people don't seem to understand how challenging it truly is.
No, absolutely. And I have a lot of thoughts around this as well when it comes to, for example, when you said people gloss over it, over the things that maybe the dark, I don't want to call it dark sides because I can think of so many other things that are much worse than dieting, for example, and experiencing the inconvenience of hunger, irritability, lethargy that comes along with it. It's all self-induced, you know? And I think that everyone can probably push through it. Most people simply don't want to push through it, which I can absolutely understand because sometimes that is not an easy task and it's not convenient. And if you've never experienced something like this before in your life, it hits you like a hammer most of the time. And this brings me to one of the points that I'm more and more convinced of, that you shouldn't really consider competing if you haven't really or have not experience under your belt. And I'm also referring to training experience so that you have the muscularity to show off, and also dieting experience, where it's like you have gone through several cycles of cutting and gaining, and not just cutting for like 8 weeks where you went from 25% to 20% body fat, but I'm also talking about maybe even photo shoot leanness, just to dip your feet into the water and get somewhat of an idea of what it feels like. And if you've never done that, I'm slowly really getting to the point where I'm just like, then the time hasn't come for you to compete yet. It will maybe in the future, but if you haven't done your due diligence and haven't really earned your place there, then don't do it.
I think it's, as a rule of thumb, that works so well. Obviously, there's always people that are like freaks out there who just manage it super duper well. But I think as a rule of thumb, that makes so much sense, especially getting down close to what a stage look might be like. Obviously, not digging down into like that unsustainable, unhealthy level of body fat. But if you get close to it, you also get to see your shape and you get an idea of how might you look on stage. Whereas if you're completely ignorant to that, it makes it way harder. And it also makes it easier to predict stage weight as well. Because when someone has never got that lean, and I've had it even like in recent seasons with people where like I think their stage weight is going to be about this, but they're so far away from it and they've never been that lean that it's like I could be off by easily 5% here, which is quite a big margin of error to have. And obviously you get closer and closer every time they diet down, but or as they diet down and they reveal, but it's just a tough one. So I think that's a really good idea for people is like, again, have some more experience before you want to take the stage. Even when I did, like, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I'd still dieted a number of times and got considerably lean before I started to compete in 2014. And yeah, I think it's just people see the trophies, they see like the highlight reels, and they're just like, oh, that sounds fun. And actually, it comes down to what you mentioned, where when the going gets tough and they just kind of give up, they don't have a strong enough why in the first place. I don't know if they've always considered like why they specifically want to do it, or they have a why, but it's not really a very strong or good reason for wanting to do it either.
Yeah. Let me make another point, another recommendation though. I think if you're a first-time competitor, and this is also something that I've been thinking about more and more so over the past months now, is the closer you're to your stage weight, the better it is. Because if you're a first-time competitor, the season will probably be tough in itself because you've never pushed to those type of body fat levels in the first place. So you will experience lots of new challenges, lots of new feelings. You will probably experience things that you've never experienced before in your life. And the longer the time frame, though, that you have to deal with those things, the harder it is to actually manage to see the goal line. It's kind of like, would you rather run a 10-kilometer run or a marathon? Right? A marathon takes so much longer for especially if you are an untrained individual or kind of never done it before. And if you're spending or need to spend more and more time there, people are so bad and also long-term thinking. And especially when the goal is so far away, it's so much easier than to justify certain behaviors, certain things, and also to drop out because you haven't invested that much time yet, you know? But if you are in a much better position where it only takes you like maybe 12 to 16 weeks of getting ready, then the chances are that you will lose motivation, the willpower, and burn yourself out is much, much lower. And in the future, maybe then you need longer for a prep to then really bring a crazy conditioning or so. But I think that for a first-time competitor, you may want to consider putting yourself in a proper spot as a starting position so that the prep in itself isn't too long where you may risk burning out on the journey itself.
Yeah, I think another consideration that you've brought to light there is having realistic expectations for yourself, because I think a lot of people go into competing and they're like, I don't know, they look at the most shredded, huge guys and they're like, I don't know, I want to go pro in my first season. And you're just like, man, the first season for most people should just be about getting your feet wet, bring a presentable package to stage, pose well, try and enjoy the process. Don't dig yourself into a hole. And that's where really novice was, what novice was previously, I think, really meant to be about, like the teen and junior classes. Like for most people, it's just about, hey, like getting some experience under your belt and enjoying the process to some extent, and like buying you in for future seasons where you go into open classes. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think now it's like everyone is just like, I got to get ultimately shredded. I've got to be like winning my class and turning pro in my first season or whatever. And it's like, man, it's great to have like high expectations, but I think it sets up so many people for failure where it's just like, hey, just really like rein that in. And if you can like have a great, like just enjoyable process for your first prep and you can learn a lot about yourself, but not burn yourself out. Now think about the long term there. And that's kind of what you're also talking about in terms of like people have this short term like expectation and they like can't see the long term one.
Exactly. Yeah. And also they don't know yet that how long, let's say 30 weeks of dieting feels, because they've never done it in the first place, right? And if you have 30 weeks before you're stepping on stage, once again, it's so far in the distant future that you can't even see the stage. You can't even smell or taste it, you know? However, when you are only 12 to 16 weeks out, then it's go time and you know you have to push through it in order to make it, you know? It's so much more reachable, and you can then by then already taste and feel it, you know. And on the note on conditioning, for example, it's a funny one because I think that last time you and I talked off air about it, conditioning, that is also a highly genetic thing of how people respond to stress from a low body fat percentage. And so many people see people such as Dirk, for example, or what was the other guy again from UKDFPA?
Chris
Palin, exactly. See those type of conditionings and think that everyone is capable of getting there. And I highly doubt that. It's the same as building muscle mass, right? I think that everyone can build muscle mass, but not everyone has the potential of building a humongous amount of muscle mass. Same goes for a level of leanness, I think. Everyone can get lean, especially also bodybuilding stage lean, but not everyone can get to that elite level of leanness while maintaining the amount of muscle mass that is required in order to show it.
Yeah.
And I think that many people fool themselves that it's only about conditioning. I just have to diet long and hard enough, and then I will look like this. Then I will have those butt cheeks such as those guys. When in reality, this is also a highly genetic thing. And I think that you can even elaborate on Chris, what he told you.
Yeah, I think we spoke about it on air actually, where it was just like, for Chris getting much over 5 kilograms above stage weight, and he can't hold it because he has to eat so many calories and his metabolism so fast. So it's like he has to lose 5 kilograms and he's shredded to the bone. Yeah. And it was uncomfortable being 5 kilograms over. Imagine that. That's like absurd, like how he deals with that. Whereas for a lot of competitors, they're like 30, 40 pounds above stage weight, and that's where they live and feel comfortable. So you've even got someone like me where I can be like 20 pounds over and I feel comfortable. And that sets me up for better, like holding that condition slightly better. But then you've also got like, how does that person respond to stress? And I'm quite a stressful person, so maybe that doesn't hold me in favor. But I think the key point you talked about is yes, you can keep dieting, putting yourself in a calorie deficit. You're going to continue to lose weight. We're not arguing against like thermodynamics. That doesn't mean you're going to look good at the end of it, because stress can be really elevated. You can also really have lost muscle mass. Actually, a really interesting point talked about on the podcast with Brad and Dr. Pack. I should say just Dr. Brad and Dr. Pack, but I always say Dr. Pack anyway. Brad Schoenfeld and Pack. So he was talking about a case study of a bodybuilder he had and how he didn't really lose any significant lean tissue until he was getting under 7% body fat. And then it was like 50-50, I think, something along those lines. He just started really losing muscle tissue. So it's like, I don't know where that percentage is for everyone. You might be at 8%. You just start burning through muscle tissue really quickly. Is that tightrope as you get to elite condition where how much muscle are you sacrificing to lose that body fat? Because there's just a point where the body's like, this is essential body fat. I ain't fucking around burning this off. I'm going to burn your muscle mass. Whatever you do with protein, your training, I'm taking it from here. And that's something I definitely think I saw in 2021 where I just kept pushing for condition. And I think I did get better condition, but I just started shrinking a little bit all over. So it's a tricky one.
Steve, that also brings up a very good point, because you know how skeptical I am about kind of true actual muscle loss. But I think when you're putting it this way, that there's probably a certain threshold for each and every individual of essential body fat that the body deems as essential body fat, that once you cross that, it kind of flips a switch and you are the more so in that highly catabolic environment, because it wants to protect you from kind of really losing that essential, or what it deems as essential body fat. And then it's burning through muscle. I could definitely see that to be the case. When it's kind of normal conventional dieting, I think that it's way overblown when it comes to muscle loss, in my opinion. And I'm highly skeptical of the numbers that people are throwing around. And way too easy to just say like, oh no, I'm losing muscle mass, right? But at that stage, I think that there's probably not just probably, but there's definitely something to it, because I've seen it time and time again as well, that sometimes people are at the tail end of their prep, and pushing any further doesn't really give them any kind of additional benefits. They just start to look worse and worse and more stringy without really revealing more and more details.
Yeah, it's a tricky one to like run through, because as a competitor at that point, at least in my head, you're like, hey, I can keep pushing and I've clearly got more body fat to lose. But then you have to use quickly, I think, as well. You can't run that for weeks. If after a week of pushing like that and you don't look any better for it, like why you don't keep pushing in that direction, because I think that can quickly lead to issues. And of course, just listen to red flags in terms of like, how's your performance? How's your sleep? How's like, if you just suddenly are crashing overall and your diet fatigue is through the roof, clearly this is just a position that's going to make your physique look, we're bodybuilders, we're just like get shredded as possible. And like we said, the look often isn't there with that. So yeah, man. Dirk, on that note of Dirk, I saw his recent photos. He's looking absurd. He literally looks like he's just
crazy.
His glutes are looking inside out.
But he's just elite, right? Elite. And he also brings the work ethic as well, because he didn't really have a lot of time in between the last season that he's competed. It was in 2021. Yeah, yep. 2021. And now 2 years later, of course, due to his pro card, I think, right? He competes again. So the off season wasn't that long, but yet he has made tremendous improvements during that time, which also once again goes to show that the elite probably are in a are quicker to recover, and by that much quicker to also then be in that effective environment of gaining and building muscle mass. And also, once they are entering the cutting phase, they are probably holding on to much more muscle mass also to begin with.
Yeah, that's. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's literally just what I was thinking. The person who can get really shredded because they maybe have a lower body fat intervention point, because they have a lower body fat intervention point, they also recover probably quicker, and so they can make more progress in an off season. So like actually as a genetic trait for bodybuilding, having a lower body fat like intervention point where you feel good and healthy is actually a really good thing. Whereas if you have to like, I mean, it seems obvious, right? Bodybuilders need to be shredded. So if you feel good, more shredded than this other person who only feels good when they're quite soft, you're in a better competitive position.
I heard through the grapevine that Chris is also never sitting.
Chris Palin.
Yeah, he's never seated. Because when he's just 5 kilograms above stage weight, he doesn't really have any kind of fat around his glutes, and it just hurts the entire time. That's why he decides to stand the entire time.
Is that actually why? It wouldn't surprise me if he like was just constantly on his feet, and that's why his metabolism's so fast. But
because it's too painful to sit down.
Did you get pain sitting when you were shredded?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. Because so I have the feeling, and I know this, of course, I'm in my own skin. I've never been in the skin of anyone else, so I don't know what it's like for others. But I have the feeling that my bones around the glutes, right, when you're sitting, they are a little bit sharper shaped, and when I can really feel them when I'm then sitting down, and I don't really carry any kind of significant glutes, fats around the glutes anymore. And that's painful. It's not painful. It's uncomfortable. Let's put it this way.
I always feel like not a true competitive bodybuilder because I don't get extreme diet face where my like cheeks are fully in and like I don't know. You see these sharp cheekbones, and I also have never had a problem sitting down. I'm like, damn, I'm clearly not lean enough because my face is still fat and my glutes still, I don't have a problem sitting down. Obviously, that's very arbitrary things, but I just find it funny.
So funny enough, I was never as lean as I could have been the last, 2021. But when Gordon was there filming us and I was just coming off the stage and we are then chatting and I had something to eat, it was so funny because he was filming from the side and you could just see my jaw muscles working the entire time. So, yeah,
it's crazy. Like for some people, I've had clients, I don't know if you've had this, Pascal, they get diet face and they're like above 10% body fat. And I'm like, they're just skeletal face. So I think generally men have it better. Well, I see some guys where like they'd be quite lean in the face and like they fill out shirts really well and they look like pretty trim and proper and like quite jacked. And then they like, take that off and you're like, okay, you're a blobby mess. Like this is, you look like Mr. Blobby under there. Like what the hell?
I find it
so some people hide it well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we are ending the show in a short period of time now. So my oldest son Hugo, he was just once saying that his uncle, so the brother of Katie, he looks so thin, but he's actually having a belly. What's going on there? He was just asking. He's properly skinny fat, So he's just stringy when he has clothing on, but once he takes his shirt off, it's just like proper belly underneath it, and everything is just like jiggly and wobbly and all that kind of stuff, which is funny because he is someone who can very much hide it. And if you just were to see his face, he has one of those very lean faces. And I think that if he were to lean down, man, his face would probably not change that much, but he would probably also look quite skelety overall.
Yeah. It's a shame because I also prefer my leaner face. And I just
me too.
Can't hold on to that, but that's just the kind of cost of doing business of trying to get jacked.
Yeah, it is. From moon to... What's a good comparison then?
Moon. So, well, your moon face is off season, right? And then Skeletor is like...
It's full moon to new moon.
New moon.
What is it? New moon, yeah.
Is it like a crescent moon? Yeah, you don't want to look like that.
No. That's like up there, yeah. Like this one.
Oh, yes, exactly.
There. Anyway, guys, we leave it at this. We have nothing productive more to say, as you can tell by the last 10 minutes of just rounding. So, as always, we appreciate the interactions in the comment section below. We appreciate, of course, that you're not subscribed yet. I know this because 50% of the listeners haven't subscribed to our channel yet. If you're listening and you know that I'm referring to you, then please just hit the subscribe button. To you, it doesn't really cost anything. It doesn't really hurt, I promise you. And you support us.
I need to say that in the intro to the main podcast.
Yes.
To remember, 50% of you are not subscribed, and you're breaking my heart, and you don't want to see me cry on air.
Exactly.
I cry quite easily too.
So every person who's not hitting the subscribe button and still listens to our episode kills a kitten somewhere on Earth. It's the butterfly effect. So do you really, really want to kill more kittens? I doubt that. Kittens are sweet. On that note, I think that we can leave it.
Yes.
Right.
Guys, thank you.
Cheers.
Take care.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality and we know how to do it. And we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.